Well, it just goes to show that as a buyer, if you're looking to get into the market as a buyer, you certainly have a lot more options
A
available to
lot
you
more.
right now.
A lot more.
The competition is not as stiff. Keep in mind that's generally speaking. There are still some properties that have something unique about them. Whether it's the layout, the
Correct.
view, the building itself. There's some units out there that are quite unique
I
still.
spilled quite a bit of water on myself
Well then,
as I was drinking. Speaking
Uh,
of unique and special, but but
you
I
are
hope
special. That's
I
for
hope
sure.
I'm gonna lean over.
What was I saying? So those units definitely are still getting buyers to go in and bid on, and they get multiple offers. However, if the unit's not special, if there's nothing particular, there's a few units in that building available, then well, everyone's already seen it. There's no point in hiding it now.
That's true. That's true. There's no point.
Then you have more options and your competition is not as stiff. Which for sellers, if you have a typical unit, really your selling feature, your uniqueness here is going to be on your price. If you're holding off and waiting to get prices like you did or like there were that existed earlier in the year, back in Q1, then you're essentially you're a decoy listing, you're a decoy unit where somebody will say, well, check out that unit at that price, and they will undercut you on price in order to sell their unit faster and move on with their life, move on with whatever plans that they have. So don't hold on to Q1 prices. You're not going to see them anymore. You have to be realistic in what's happening in this market. And if you have a basic unit, then you need to price it strategically in order to get buyers to come check out your unit so you can sell it faster and move on, rather than being the decoy unit on the market that everyone else is playing off of.
So it's funny you should say that, because I was about to also get into a story about how I met with a condo unit owner, and his expectations are much higher than what we can actually sell for. And this is creating these complicated scenarios where me as a realtor, as a real estate agent, I have to go into listing appointments with clients, or not actual clients, but potential clients who want to sell, potential sellers who are interested to sell. And I have to be very blunt with them and be honest with them about the market. At the same time, I believe in my own abilities, and I would like the challenge too, to actually get the listing and to actually attempt to sell it. So it creates this complicated scenario. But luckily for me, when I visited this individual who wants to sell, his unit is entirely special. It's very unique. What would you now? When you say there's special cases, when you say in terms of what are you putting into the specialness of those cases? Is it location more so for you, or are you saying like if it's the price point? Like what do you suspect will happen to $1 million condos? Like when you're trying to get into that price point, how do you think the trends will affect more luxurious units?
The luxury units, I haven't drilled down into the numbers there. I think most people that live in luxury units are staying put for the most part if they can afford to. But that's an entire different market. There's not as many luxury units for sale as there is your typical 1 bedroom plus den or 2 bedroom units. Now, what I mean by special is
The building and the area?
the area, the view, perhaps.
The view,
Maybe
exactly.
you have an unobstructed view of the CN Tower and that entire skyline.
Well,
Maybe you have an unobstructed view of the lake, and every morning you wake up, you have the sun right into your unit, and it's bright and beautiful, and you can look out into the lake, and it's a very unique view that you may not get in other units or in other condos. Maybe you have 18-foot ceilings because it's a loft style condo,
yeah.
and you have a bedroom upstairs, but your living room
It's downstairs.
and kitchen is on the ground, or not ground, but on the main level
Yeah.
of the 2-story unit, and you have roaring, sky high 18-foot, 20-foot ceilings. Those are all unique features
Yep.
that you may not come across in other units.
So just to elaborate upon that, that's exactly what was the case when I went and met with this individual. They had one of the best views I've ever seen of the CN Tower.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, it wasn't too close, but not too far. It was perfect distance to not just the CN Tower, but the entire skyline of the downtown core.
Right.
And that's why it was complicated for me to price it for him at an accurate, like I always say, I always give ranges. I don't know about you, but I give a range, a reasonable range. And it's difficult with those types of units because you do have a downward pressure on condos in general that's leading to a decline, and even more so in 2021. But at the same time, if there are special cases, as you said, and there are unique features about certain condos that you have to take into account in equilibrium with all the negatives, right? So it makes it a bit of a more complicated exercise to price it. Of course, you always have to account for, like, if this individual, if I were to be, too overly negative and too overly honest, would they want to even work with me, right? That's something every agent has to battle within themselves to see, am I here to get a listing or am I here to do the job right? And that's, a conflict within most realtors, in my opinion. Point being, all that is taken into account. With this condominium, it was kind of difficult for me to price it. Not to say I didn't eventually fall towards a price point that I think will be good for the unit, but right now the condo market is in flux, and those special cases are in more of a gray area that can be complicated to determine.
Right, especially if there's no history of sales or of units that have sold that are similar in size, layout, and those special features.
Yeah,
so
comparisons were few.
Right.
Few.
So it does make it a bit more difficult to land on a price. So then you just kind of have to make those adjustments and really, really do a lot of research on perhaps other units in different areas to compare. Like, for example, with the view. If there's another unit in a different building, maybe 2-3 kilometers away, to see what view they had and how much that sold for, and then comparing it to others that don't have quite the same view, then you can come to some reasonable estimation as to what the premium is for such a view. It's hard.
I put it at $60K.
The view?
Yeah, I put it. I told them at $60K.
Right.
Maybe I overestimated, maybe not. I feel confident that $60K is the right price, but anyways, back to the general market. So do you have any closing statements on these numbers and any other thoughts you want to share?
Other thoughts, listen, if you're a seller, if you own a condo, you really got to figure out what your plans are. Are you looking to upsize and move out of the city? Then, or not even out of the city, within the city, if you want to upsize out of your condo and move into a townhome or whatever, then you really have to price strategically, because you don't want to sit on the market for too long. The longer you're on the market, the staler your listing gets, the lower it's going to sell for. And if you have plans and you want to see them through, then have a serious conversation, an honest conversation as to what you need in order to make your plans happen. If the market is below what your needs are, then consider staying put, especially if you can afford to stay put for the next year to 2 years, or perhaps even 3 years, if this COVID stuff really is not behind us by that time. If you can't afford to stay put and end up having to rent or something because the expenses are too much, then once again, have a realistic and honest conversation with your realtor. Hopefully it's us. And if not, then just figure out what you need to be at price-wise in order to sell. if you're a buyer and you want to get into the market, it's certainly a good time to start looking. We do think that the prices will probably dip a little bit. However, that's not to say that a unique unit will always come to market, right?
That is true. That is
That
true.
view, that layout, those finishes, the updates, the building, that's not to say that if it is on a market right now, that you're going to see that unit again in the future, or a similar unit to it in the future. There's no guarantee of that. So don't hesitate to pull the trigger and try and get yourself a good deal for that unit if you absolutely like the unit. Because once again, there's no guarantee you'll come across that, and you don't want to regret not pulling the trigger when you had the opportunity. There's great deals to be had. You got to look at everything individually and really assess, and make the best decision going forward. And if you're starting off and you need some more advice, a one-on-one, would be happy to sit down with you
Exactly.
and help you and strategically move you forward in order to realize your goal, whether you're buying or you need to sell and move on into something else.